The conflict in Ukraine has dragged on for months, leaving serious consequences for both the region and the world. But what led to this situation? What were the roles of the US and NATO in igniting the flames of war? And how has Russia's reaction changed the situation? Join us as we explore the hidden truths behind the war, to understand the causes and consequences of one of the largest conflicts of modern times. The war in Ukraine has seen unprecedented military support from the US and NATO. To date, the US has provided more than $43 billion in weapons, including the Patriot air defense system, HIMARS artillery, Abrams tanks, and advanced drones. NATO has also made significant contributions, with member countries providing thousands of tons of ammunition, combat vehicles, and modern radar systems. These weapons have created a major shift in the course of the war. Ukraine has not only strengthened its defenses, but has also carried out strategic counter-offensives. However, this support has also had consequences, making the conflict increasingly tense and prolonged. Can military aid bring peace, or will it only push the parties into a new cycle of conflict? We need to continue to monitor the situation to understand the long-term impact of the war. The war in Ukraine is not just a regional conflict, but also a stage for the US and NATO to pursue important strategic goals, containing Russia's rise. History has shown since the Cold War, NATO has consistently expanded its influence eastward, approaching Russia's borders. The goal is not only to protect member countries, but also to divide Russia and reduce its power on the international stage. NATO's military presence near Russia's border is not only a threat to Moscow's security, but also puts the world at risk of greater instability. Increasing influence in Europe, the center of many international relations, is where the US wants to strengthen its leadership role. By providing weapons and maintaining a military presence, the US protects the interests of its allies while balancing influence with powers like China and Russia. Selling arms to European countries not only deepens alliances, but also brings huge profits to the US defense industry. Companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon make billions of dollars, creating thousands of jobs at home. The relationship between the US government and major arms companies is always close, an integral factor in Washington's foreign policy. Developing a shadow government. Along with public strategies, the US government also uses covert operations through affiliated organizations and intelligence agencies. Campaigns such as training Ukrainian forces, providing battlefield intelligence support, or transporting sophisticated weapons are all carried out discreetly. These examples clearly illustrate how the shadow government operates to support strategic objectives. All of these actions are closely linked to the goals of the US and NATO. Providing weapons to Ukraine not only helps them defend themselves, but is also a tool to contain Russia, strengthen US influence in Europe, and maintain economic interests in the defense industry. However, these goals have faced much controversy, from escalating the conflict to pushing the world into the risk of long-term instability. These strategies not only reshape the international landscape, but also highlight how superpowers use conflict to pursue their own interests. The conflict in Ukraine has become a focal point for different perspectives around the globe. Russia's perspective. Russia believes that NATO's eastward expansion is a direct threat to its national security. The Kremlin insists its actions in Ukraine are necessary to protect national interests, protect the Russian community in Donbass, and prevent Western influence in the region. Moscow also criticizes the US and NATO for pushing the conflict to escalate. European countries' perspective. Many European countries, especially NATO members, support Ukraine both militarily and financially. However, not all agree. Some countries, like Hungary, call for dialogue instead of confrontation, concerned about the economic impact and the risk of the conflict spreading. Europe is divided between the need to support Ukraine and minimizing risks to regional security. Other countries' perspective. Many countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America remain neutral, calling for peace and dialogue. China emphasizes its role as a strategic partner with Russia, but at the same time calls for a peaceful solution. On the other hand, countries like Japan and South Korea have expressed concern about the global impact of the conflict. The difference in perspectives reflects the separate priorities and interests of each country. While the West sees this as an opportunity to strengthen alliances, Russia sees it as a war to defend its sovereignty. Neutral countries try to avoid being drawn into this polarization. The conflict has strained international relations, strengthened military alliances, but also created opportunities for new diplomatic efforts. The future of the world will depend on the ability to balance dialogue and power. Before the war, Ukraine was a developing country, with people's lives focused on work, family, and building a future. Cities like Kiev and Kharkov were vibrant, with modern infrastructure and a diverse economy. But now, war has changed everything. Ukrainians face loss and suffering, from destroyed homes and closed schools to leaving their homeland to seek refuge. Those who stay must live in precarious conditions, no electricity, no water, and constantly threatened by bombs. When the war ends, how will the reconstruction process begin? Who will be primarily responsible for the recovery? And most importantly, when can Ukrainians return to their lives as before, with fully restored infrastructure and communities? Who benefits from this war? The defense industry, the countries that supply weapons, and the forces that take advantage of the conflict to expand their political influence all benefit. Meanwhile, the biggest losers are none other than the Ukrainian people. The conflict in Ukraine has left deep consequences, not only for this country, but also impacting the whole world. From the losses of the Ukrainian people, the divisions in the international community, to the benefits that some forces gain from war. This is a story not only about geopolitics, but also about people. We have witnessed the destruction of infrastructure, the disruption of the lives of millions of people, and the heated debates about the responsibility for reconstruction. While some countries strongly support it, many questions remain unanswered. Who will be primarily responsible? When will the Ukrainian people be able to restore their lives as before the war? Can the world overcome differences to find a lasting peaceful solution? Or will we continue to witness an endless cycle of conflict? Thank you for watching the video. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comments section. Goodbye and see you again.